Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to answer which is the better stock to buy, Intel or Salesforce. I'm going to compare these two on revenue, cash flow, profit margin, and valuation. So let's jump right in, starting with revenue. And looking at this metric, you can see trailing 12-month revenue for Intel has been coming down in the last year and a half or so, from a peak of around 75 billion down to about 54 billion. Meanwhile, Salesforce has experienced steady growth in revenue, reaching 33 billion in the most recent trailing 12 months. Each of these companies in the long term has good revenue prospects, revenue growth prospects. In the short term, however, Intel will remain pressured as computer spending will remain down until I would forecast maybe 2025 or late 2024, because remember, so many people bought computers in 2020 and 2021 that they're not going to need to replace those until maybe starting 2025. Remember, computers are replaced on average every 4 to 6 years. So that's what's primarily pressuring Intel Corporation right now and its revenues. The next thing I wanted to look at is operating profit margin. And looking at the last 3 years, again, you see a similar story with Intel's operating profit margin taking a dip from a higher level. It was north of 24%, and Salesforce doing the opposite, its operating profit margin rising 12.98% in the most recent update in its trailing 12 month. Remember, Salesforce announced major job cuts and cost cuts earlier this year, and so those are starting to take effect, and its profit margins are really rising sharply here to 12.98%. The next thing I wanted to look at is cash flow from operations to sales. And again, similar story with this metric, Intel taking a dip as sales have fallen. Meanwhile, Salesforce doing a nice job keeping it steady, although you don't see that nice jump in cash flow from operations to sales in the same way you do with its operating profit margin. Although a cash flow from operations to sales of 25% is a very nice figure, I would have been more pleased with Salesforce if it had shown an increase in cash flow from operations to sales over the years as its revenue has grown. Finally, I wanted to compare the two on valuation, and I chose to use the forward price to earnings metric. And Salesforce is slightly more expensive according to this metric at 23.6 compared to a forward PE of 21.05 for Intel. Now, given all the headwinds that Intel faces, and given the rising prospects for Salesforce, I would pay that premium to buy Salesforce right now. By the time Intel gets its revenues and profit margins back on the rise, Salesforce could be well ahead at that point as well if its revenue continues rising as many forecast it will. So, for those reasons, if I was to pick between one of these two stocks right now, I would pick Salesforce, would be my choice. I want to thank the Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.